Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Marvel and DC Retrospective Podcast. This is a brand new episode of the show on the podcast, Midlife Crisis, which is a show where I recount every single DC event that is like universe spanning, so starting with like Crisis on Infinite Earth. So as long as it has a lot of different characters in it, I will cover it. So I won't be covering like Batman events and Superman events that are mostly self-contained. And today we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to be explaining Invasion and most of its tie-ins. I've decided that from now on, when I do tie-ins, if it's like doesn't have very much to do with the event at all, I'll talk about what's important to the event and kind of just avoid everything else unless it's a really good story that I want to talk about. That way we can get through these events and it won't take a million years, because sometimes some tie-ins have nothing to do with the event while other tie-ins are heavily tied in. So I feel like that's going to be the best way to go about this. But yeah, Invasion is an event that came out, I think it was 1988. It was a year after Millennium, and DC were like, let's do another event, and this time, alien invasion. So, aliens attack Earth, and the heroes fight back, and but if you're gonna summarize the event, that's the best way that you're gonna do it. It's not as long as Millennium. There's not as many tie-ins, so it shouldn't take as long for us to get through this. But the mini-series of Invasion, they're all like 82 pages, so I'm gonna try and like summarize it, because if I go deep into those issues and talk about what everyone says and stuff like that, it's gonna take me forever to record everything, and these episodes are gonna end up being way too long. So I'm gonna talk about all the important things, and if something is worth of note, I will talk about it. So without further ado, I think that I should just get straight on and start with issue 1 of Invasion. If you've listened to the Flash Forward podcast, where I go through every single issue of the Flash, in issue 20, it ended with Wally being scanned by an alien being, and that leads directly into Invasion. That will actually be explained in Invasion itself. There's 4 chapters per Invasion issue, which is good, so it helps me split up this recording. But yeah, let's start with chapter 1. So, this race, known as the Dominators, who are essentially just a race that they're a race of aliens that just want to do what their namesake is, which is take down anything that they perceive as a threat. They've recently been sending beings to Earth to categorize humans by like scanning them, because they've discovered that there are certain humans who are evolving past the other humans and are gaining superpowers. So they want to put an end to that by finding a way to nullify these superpowered humans so that they can take over Earth. So they kidnap a bunch of humans that they deem could possibly have these powers, like 50 or so. They take them back to their planet, and they plan on just like shooting them and stuff with like all tons of weaponry and seeing which ones survive, and the ones that survive are the ones that will have powers. That's how they go about it. It's really brutal. So they kidnap all these people, take them back to their planet, they set them up in this field, and then allow the humans to trigger the sensors, and upon triggering the sensors, all this weaponry and stuff comes out and just starts blasting all these people and killing a lot of them. The Dominators are also currently allied with another group of aliens called the Khund, and the Khund are basically just this terrible race of aliens who just want to destroy everything and just want to be brutal and awful. So yeah, all these people that they've kidnapped get destroyed by all like lasers and bombs and shit until there's only 7 remaining. 6 that are completely fine, and then 1 woman who is gravely injured but she survived. So they deem that these 7 people have powers, but this woman must not be as strong as the others. And the Dominators are just like blown away by how many people survive, because they thought only 1 would survive. The fact that 6 or 7 have survived really blows their mind. They're just like, 6? Like that? How is that possible? Like this is more of a problem than we thought. Like we need to deal with Earth now, because if we grabbed 50 people, 6 of them had powers. Imagine how many there are on Earth, which has a population of, over 1 billion. And one of the unfortunately, the woman that is gravely injured gets taken away and killed off screen, like off panel, because she just won't, like, they get annoyed by her groaning because she's obviously really badly hurt, and so they're just like, can you please shut up, that woman? And so she gets killed off panel, and we get introduced to some of the 6 remaining superhuman captives, who will probably be important during this event. I would hope so. We got Amos Monroe, who's a con artist. We got a young boy named Mosh Levy. We got a woman named Carlotta Rivera. She's a fashion model. We got a guy named Fritz Klein, who is a ski instructor. A man named Dexter Fairfax, who is a writer of children's books. And a much more well-known actual DC character, Lucas Snapper Cart, who is the mascot of the Justice League of America. So he was often just like a regular dude who was a member of the Justice League and kind of helped them with stuff. But he's here too, and it turns out he is a metahuman. So these 6 metahumans, the Dominators decide to put them away in a prison cell that's safely guarded because they see them as a threat. So they send these 6 away, and after doing that, the Dominators that held this research then go and talk to all of the other Dominators at their Dominator Council to tell them about how they've discovered this gene inside humans that is evolving them beyond being human, making them superpowered. They talk about how most other races are all one is when it comes to the Kundians, they're all the same, and when it comes to the Durans, they're all the same. But with humans, that's not the case. Some of them are different, and that's a problem. That's a problem for us. So we need to eliminate them. Because the Dominators are kind of looking for a totalitarian kind of universe where everyone is, every race is the same within. There are no outliers within each race that could... the Dominators want to be the strongest race in the universe, and in order for that to happen, they need every other race to be as basic as possible in terms of their genetics. And so they decide that they need to create an alliance. Obviously they got to attack Earth, but before they attack Earth, the Dominators won't be able to do it on their own because they've calculated that there are a lot of superheroes on Earth. So they've decided that they need to create an alliance with lots of different alien races. And one of the Dominators is yeah, but what about the Green Lanterns? Because Earth are pretty close to the Green Lanterns, so wouldn't they get in our way? And at this point, one of the Dominators explains that at this point, the Green Lanterns, there are very few of them. Most of them have given up their power. They're still members of the Corps, they just don't have any power left. There are only 4 currently, 4 Green Lanterns that are currently powered out of the entire Corps. You got Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, and Kilowog. They are the only Green Lanterns left that have any power. But the name of the Green Lanterns and their connection with each other is still very dangerous for the Dominators. So they've got to go around and like try and kill off all of the powerless Green Lanterns as well, because they're still a danger despite not having powers. So they create alliances with these different alien races throughout the universe, and through these alliances, these races kill their own Green Lanterns. So there's this one Green Lantern who's trying to speak against his planet and tell them that like they're in danger and that like they shouldn't be a part of this alliance, and he just gets his head blown up by a member of his own race. It's just like, that's what you get for defying the alliance. And then another Green Lantern is chased down on by the Kundians, and she's killed. And then another Green Lantern is being chased through space by the Kundians, and he tries to call the Omega Men. Now, the Omega Men are basically DC's Guardians of the Galaxy. They're just a race. They're just like a group of aliens that all came together and decided that they wanted to do good. Originally, they started off as enemies of Green Lantern, but it was a mistake. They weren't like Green Lantern mistook them for being bad people, but it turns out that only one of them was evil. But yeah, they've kind of taken on that role of just like helping the entire galaxy and all aliens and stuff like that. So this Green Lantern tries to call them to tell them what's going on, and his ship gets blown up. But luckily, the Omega Men still get a signal from their own from their own people, from their own team. So they know what is going on and what the Dominators are planning. But we'll see their reaction to that a little bit later. But, you know, that's what happens. Like, at this point in time, the Omega Men have gotten a signal about what's going on. We just won't see it for a bit. But it has happened. So the Dominators are all congratulating each other for, like, killing all these Green Lanterns. And, they kind of like oversee the fruits of their alliance, and we get to see some of the planets that have joined their alliance. And one of these planets is Thanagar, and Thanagar is where Hawkman and Hawkwoman came from, and they are like the only two good Thanagarians. The rest of the Thanagarians, or not all of them, are bad, but most of them are, and the ones that aren't bad are the ones that are being sent to the Dominators to be, like, tested on or killed. So, because there are whatever Thanagarians went against the Alliance are being shipped off to the Dominators. And this guy called Commander Drell, who is a real big dick, he's like, we've purified our planet, we've gotten rid of all of the naysayers, and Thanagar hates Earth, so we're ready to align with the Dominators and take down Earth. And it'll be a message to all of the Thanagarians who think like Hawkman and Hawkwoman. You know, when we attack Earth, they'll see what happens when you betray the Thanagarians, because you will end up having the same fate that Hawkman and Hawkwoman are going to have, which is death. And so, yeah. So the Thanagarians team up with the Dominators. And meanwhile, over on Ran, which is where the Renegarians live, they're essentially like this race that are often they're often locked in battle with Thanagar. They're pretty much the opposite of the Thanagarians. While the Thanagarians are battle-hardened warriors that just want to like cause destruction and just be like, and just battle and fight and stuff like that. The Renegarians are much more peaceful and more about research. So they want to avoid being in the alliance with the Dominators, but they also want to avoid being destroyed by the Dominators by not joining the alliance. So one of their representatives, Adam Strange, who is a hero from Earth, Adam Strange is basically this guy who got caught in this thing called Zeta beams, which are like these, it's like a beam that allows you to travel to different parts of the universe, and he's gotten stuck in them, and he has no control over where he travels. So the Zeta beam just sends him whenever, and it just happens. He doesn't know when it's going to happen, but he'll just end up on another planet. And I think the origin is that he ended up on Ran by accident, and then became their hero. So he decides that what he needs to do is he needs to give himself into the Dominators. And if he gives himself into the Dominators, he'll be able to spy on them. And they're like, you're an idiot. Like, that's stupid. And, that's suicide. And Adam Strange is like, yeah, but if they put me in prison, I'm guaranteed to eventually get out, because the Zeta beam will just teleport me out at some point. And they're just like, not if they kill you first. Adam Strange is just like, it's something I'm going to have to risk. Like, I just got to do this. Like, I've got to be a hero. I got to protect Ran. This is the best way that we're going to do that, is that if I offer myself up, because they would want me. And so Adam Strange does that. He gives himself into the Dominators. He flies off to the Dominators to turn himself in, while everyone else on Ran kind of just figures out what they're going to do in order to stop them. Like, they're just hoping that the Dominators don't destroy them. And they don't, for now. The Dominators take Adam Strange in and put him in a cell. We don't get to see it, but it happens off-panel. But they take him in, put him in a cell, and agree not to destroy Ran. The Dominators reveal that they have communicated with Apocalypse to ask them to join the Alliance. Darkseid refuses to join the Alliance, but he's happy for the Dominators to attack Earth. He just tells them not to destroy it. And the Dominators oblige. They say, like, yeah, we'll heed his warning and not destroy Earth, because obviously they don't want to call upon the wrath of Darkseid, because even the Dominators are afraid of Apocalypse. So we get introduced to the Dominator Alliance. They've gone and recruited all of their members from throughout the universe. There are the shapeshifters of Durla, who are just these cloaked guys who are like just blobs of slime that can shapeshift and stuff. The Thanagarians, who I've already explained. The Guild Dishpan, who are a group of like weird fish-looking, like weird aliens that live underwater. The Daxamites, who are often, I don't know if they are at this point, but they're usually shown as being like neighbors to Krypton. So they're like a neighboring planet of Krypton, and they're very similar to Krypton in terms of like their powers and stuff, except they don't get them from Yellow Sun. I think they get them from like the Red Sun or something. They're here more or less to fight. Like, they don't want to really fight. They're just here to, like, because they're interested in learning more about these humans with superpowers. The Warlords of Akara, who are, like, weaponsmiths. The Citizens of the Citadel, who are big brutes. They'll be more of, like, the, they'll be helming the ships and stuff. The Scions, who are, like, scientists. And then the Kund, who I have explained earlier, they will be the warriors that will go in and actually like fight the heroes, most likely. Them and the Thanagarians will be the front line of the Alliance. And so the original, like, the Dominators are like, okay, before we go ahead with anything, is everyone committed to this alliance? Because we don't want to start this and then have somebody betray us. And they're all like, yeah, no, we're not going to betray you. So let's just get ahead with it. And so the Dominators move forward with their plans to talk about, the plans for war. To discuss exactly what the alliance is going to do next. So Adam Strange is currently being held captive he's met this man named Garen Beck, who is also another captive, and he is essentially just watching the Dominators receive more captives. They receive them from this alien race that are a bunch of from this race called the Spider Guild. They're basically just a bunch of robotic spiders. So they drop off all of their captives. And Adam Strange is talking about how he needs to do something. He needs to they need to. The plan is that they're gonna rally all of them together and fight, try and escape. But Garen Beck just isn't into it. He's just no, we're better off just not aggravating the Dominators, because if we aggravate them, they're probably gonna kill us all. So meanwhile, one of the Dominators is talking to a member of the Citadel, the warden of the prison, and he asks the Dominator why they're keeping all of these superpowered beings in one cell together, because he's what's stopping them from banding together and escaping with their powers? And the Dominator is just the prison's built to keep them all in there. There's special technology that dampens their powers and stops them from escaping. Meanwhile, the Omega Men received a distress call, so they've come to check it out. And upon arriving at the distress call, which is the ship of their ally, it turns out that it was a fake ship that had sent out a fake distress call, and it was actually the Durlans that had transformed into the ship. And so the Omega Men are attacked by the Durlans in the middle of space. The Durlans overwhelm their ship. There's hundreds of them, just attack them. So the Omega Men, some of the members are this character named, I think his name's Tigor. Yeah, Tigor, and Block is another character, another member. They all get attacked by the Durlans. So they try to fight back against the Durlans, but it's the Durlans are just there's too many of them. They kill some of the Omega Men, and then the remaining ones Tigor and Block get captured by the Durlans and taken back to the Dominators. Their ship gets destroyed and everything, and then using their gooey bodies, they absorb the remaining living members of the Omega Men and take them back to the Dominators to hold them captive. This causes the Kundians to be what? If we'd have done it, we would have destroyed the Omega Men in half the time, and the Durlans would have been and how would you explain to the Scions that you failed to bring back their specimens alive? And that's when we learn that there's some cracks in the Alliance where the Kundians don't like the Scions, and nobody really likes the Scions, and the Durlans are and the Durlans don't like the Kundians either, secretly. So when the Kundian leaves, the Durlan is once our alliance dissolves, we're going to destroy you. So they're already talking about betrayal. So earlier on they said we're not going to betray anyone, but already there are certain members of the alliance, the Durlans, who are planning to turn against the other members of the alliance, including the Kundians. So before the Dominators can actually attack Earth, there is one person that they need to deal with who lives on the moon. His name is Gargax, and he's basically just he's kind of a comic relief villain of the Doom Patrol. He kind of sucks, and that's evident here. The Kundians ask him to join their alliance, but Gargax asks for a price. He's you gotta pay me if I'm gonna join you. And so the Kundians are alright, then we'll just destroy you. You either get off the moon now and get out of our way, or we will destroy you. And Gargax is oh, whoa, okay. Sure, I'll get out of here, I'll pack my things. And so he leaves the moon, which gives the Dominions a free gateway to go straight to Earth. So now nothing is standing in their way from attacking Earth. No Green Lanterns and no Gargax and his empire. So, meanwhile, back in the prison, Adam Strange is still talking about rallying. Like, he's like, look at all these captives. Like, why don't we just all band together and escape? And Garen Beck is just like, he's still just against it. He's just like, look at that guy over there. Like, there's this Koloan over here, and so they point to like this little alien, like this green-skinned alien dude with blonde hair, just chilling. Like, he hasn't done anything, and they've been leaving him alone. So I feel like the rest of us should just do that. Like, let's just not do anything, because I'd rather be alive than die trying to make a futile, like, than following some stupid plan to escape. And Adam Strange is just so headstrong on trying to escape that he really pisses off Garen Beck. And Garen Beck is just like, the only reason you're so fixated, like, the only reason you're so okay with this stupid plan to escape is because you don't even need to worry about being here for very long, because the Zeta Beam is eventually going to grab you and take you out of this prison anyway. And that kind of throws Adam Strange off. He's like, he's right. Like, I don't really have to worry as much as these other people, because I'm not even going to be here for very long. You know? And so he kind of reconsiders this whole escape plan, but then he's like, I have to save Ran. I have to save the people that I love. So he decides that he needs to find a way to break out the superpowered humans that are being kept in their own prison cell, because with them and their power, they may have a chance to escape from the prison. So Garen Beck is against this, but Adam Strange is deciding that he wants to go ahead with it and try and break these powered people, these people with superpowers out of, I'm just going to call them metahumans. It's a thing that they eventually designate them, but this is the first time that DC will use the term metahumans. So, yeah, he wants to break the metahumans out of the prison to help them escape. And so, yeah, that's the end of Chapter 2. We are left off with Adam Strange deciding that he wants to break the metahumans out of prison, and the Dominators are ready to attack Earth now that nothing is standing in their way. Before I continue, I actually completely forgot to mention who is creating this invasion event. It's written by Keith Giffen and Bill Mantlo, with art by Todd McFarlane, who you would know as the creator of Venom. Keith Giffen is one of the writers on Justice League International, which is why Justice League International will actually tie heavily into this, and the characters will be very important to this overall event. But yeah, I just forgot to mention that. It's very important. I do like to, give credit where credit is due. So, without further ado, let's continue. So, the Kundians are, notice that the Okarans have created an entire fleet of ships for them, and so they're like, yeah, thank you for helping with that. Like, we Kundians are already really powerful, but with your ships, we're going to be even more powerful. And the Okarans kind of insult them a little bit by telling them that, the Kundians are probably won't even be able, they made the ships simple enough for the Kundians to use because the Kundians aren't that smart. And so all of the different fleets for all of the members of the Alliance gather together and all prepare to travel to Earth. Meanwhile, one Dominator... There's one Dominator who is against eradicating all the metahumans. They're not completely against, like, taking over Earth, because, like the other Dominators, they do want their race to kind of, like, dominate. But they want to do it in a more peaceful manner. So instead of eradicating the metahumans, this Dominator always wanted to find a way to just neutralize the metahumans, and then that's it. And then Earth would just be nothing to them, and then they would just leave Earth alone and, you know, be the rulers of the universe, you know, out of them just being stronger. So he's kind of just contemplating, like, is there a way to stop his people from destroying the metahumans? Because he just sees them as a way to, like, they should instead just research them and, like, not kill them. So he's left with that moral dilemma. So all of the fleets of ships travel to Earth through hyperspace, and they arrive at Earth. And then they just straight away attack it. They get to Earth and all the ships just attack it all at once. Meanwhile, on Earth, Adam Strange, through a Zeta beam, is transported randomly to his island on Earth. And he's like, yes, I'm back on Earth. I can warn everyone about the invasion. But then he realizes that, like, Earth's already been invaded and that he's too late. He didn't even get there before they arrive. The Kundians find him on the island, and Adam Strange's fate is kind of left unknown. Because back on the Dominion's planet, where the prison is, they say that they've recaptured Adam Strange because he was found on Earth, having escaped. But we don't actually see him get put back in prison, so it's kind of up in the air as to whether or not he actually got captured. But the Citadel decides that because somebody has already escaped, the other prisoners need to be punished in order to teach them never to try and escape from the prison. So the Citadel decide to just randomly shoot prisoners, killing them. And that's exactly what they do. Yeah, so, like, a bunch of prisoners just get shot down and murdered. And then the rest of the prisoners are sent to their prison cells. And it's after Adam Strange escapes that that the warden of the Citadel decides to, like, he demands to have a look at the prison cell that is keeping all of the superhumans in it. And so the Dominator caves and allows him to inspect the prison cell that is holding the metahumans. He questions the Dominator on how he, like, first of all, he questions the Dominators on, like, why the metahumans are wearing shackles if they're already behind, like, unbreakable cells. And the Dominator explains that the shackles are feeding them tranquilizers to keep them, like, comatose. The Dominator also explains that there are, like, plates throughout the entire room where if an unauthorized person steps on it, they will be instantly vaporized. And then he's like, and that includes you, Warden, because you're an unauthorized person. And the Warden's just like, well, we better talk to the Scions and get that fixed, like, right away. But, like, I am happy with, you know, my inspection. I'm happy with the prison cell. I believe you. They're never going to get out of here. But yeah, the Warden's really afraid there for a sec because he was at risk of being vaporized as well. And meanwhile, what was his name? Garan Barek? What if his name? Adam Strange's cellmate gets a new cellmate after Adam Strange had escaped. Adam's whereabouts are still unknown, but he gets put in a cell with the Cola one. Now, I'm pretty sure this Coloan, he's the same race as Brainiac 5, and my idea was that, like, this is Brainiac 5, but we actually don't know this Coloan's name yet, but I'm going to assume it's Brainiac 5, and if it's not, it's somebody who's possibly related to him. But this Coloan finally speaks for the first time and is basically like, I've been listening to them about their plans and stuff, so we gotta get out of here, we gotta come up with some kind of plan to escape. And, so his cellmate, wasn't it? It was Garan, right? Yeah, Garan is left, like, just like, oh. There are so many characters in these, it's really hard to remember everybody's names, especially when you've got, like, an alien name that just was made up and isn't real. So he's just kind of left, like, being like, alright, I guess I'm just gonna go with whatever plan you have, Coloan. And so meanwhile, all of the Alliance forces attack Australia. All of their ships just fly straight into Australia and destroy everything and obliterate everything. And upon arriving, I was wrong about the Daxamites, by the way. I thought that they were like, it was like the opposite of like the Kryptonians where they get powered by the red sun. No, they just get powered by the yellow sun. And this is actually their first time coming to Earth, which I didn't know. And so when they arrive on Earth with the Kundians, they realize that they have powers and that they can fly, they have super strength. With their super strength, they just like crash through an entire building and destroy it. And so upon discovering these powers, the Daxamites have always been neutral, and some of them want to stay neutral. But upon discovering that they have powers, they decide to tell their higher-ups to see if the higher-ups want to change their stance on being neutral, because now they have the power to actually attack Earth. But until then, until they've gotten, word from their leaders, they've decided to hold back and not help the Kundians fight Australia. So the Kundians believe them to be cowards. But yeah, we're kind of seeing a bit of a divide in the Daxian, it's the Daxians, right? The Maxians? Wait, I need to go back a bit because I want to make sure. I think it's the Daxians. Yeah, the Daxians. Sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around some of the names of the Daxamites. That's it, the Daxamites. Sorry, there's so many different alien races that I gotta keep memorized. Like I gotta remember their names. So yeah, the Daxamites, there's a divide within them. Some of them are against like being aggressive and would rather stay neutral, while the others are more in favor of becoming aggressive now that they've discovered that they have powers. Australia, the Daxamites also point out to the Kundians that Australia doesn't really have any superheroes, because the Kundians are getting a bit big-headed. They're like, once the rest of the planet sees that we've taken down Australia, they'll bend to our will, like, easy peasy. And the Daxamites are like, yeah, but taking over the rest of the continents isn't going to be as easy, because Australia has the least amount of superheroes out of all of them, and as far as we know, none of them even have superpowers. So, meanwhile, the Spectre senses that the invasion has begun. And so right away, he's like, I've got to do something about this. But then he gets called by, the Lords of Order, and the Lords of Order basically just tell Spectre not to intervene, because DC wants this event to actually go on longer than an issue, and they know that the Spectre can just stop it from happening, so they had to come up with a reason for the Spectre to be preoccupied. So the Spectre just gets told by the Lords of Order not to intervene because his intervention could cause chaos. And so, and they also tell him to stop any other magical beings like Dr. Fate and Phantom Stranger, etc., from intervening as well for the same reason. So that's how they explain all of the magical people not taking part in the event, or Spectre is sent out to stop them. So that's how they explain away the magical, the most powerful beings in the DC universe from, not just stopping the event with a snap of the finger, you know? So Spectre begrudgingly follows their orders and heads off to stop all magical beings from helping. Some of the Kundians and Okarans find the JLI's embassy in Australia, because they have embassies throughout, like little bases throughout the entire world. They find their Australian one, and upon finding the Australian one, they find the Tasmanian Devil. Remember him from the Millennium event? He was in the Infinity Inc. tie-in. Well, they find him and they take him in. And the Kundians actually get a little bit they start to second guess Earth, because they find that Earth has teleporters, and they kind of act like them having teleporters is like nothing. But then the Kundian is kind of like to himself, wow, Earth has actually got better technology than we thought. Which means that maybe these superheroes here have more power than we realized. Like, maybe that Tasmanian Devil guy has more power than we know. I'm kind of second guessing, like, how powerful Earth really is. Because apparently teleportation is quite impressive for a primitive race like the human race. So the Okarans are tasked with trying to replicate teleportation, because apparently they don't know how to do that. And meanwhile, Amanda Waller is told to not allow the Suicide Squad to intervene in the invasion, and she's really pissed off. She's like, "Damn it! You know, the president has given Maxwell Lord the order to stop us from, you know, intervening with the Suicide Squad. This is so stupid. I'm just gonna do something anyway." And so she calls Bronze Tiger over the phone and calls him to hold a meeting. She wants to talk to him right now. And meanwhile, Martian Manhunter is in disagreement with Maxwell Lord. He's basically just like, why aren't we allowed to do anything? And Maxwell Lord is like, because the president wants to bring all of the, like, he's like, why aren't the Suicide Squad allowed to help us and just attack the invasion? You know? And Maxwell Lord is just like, the president wants all of the superheroes to be united together, brought together before we do anything. You know, because he's afraid that if we attack the invasion now, they might do something drastic. We want to kind of wait it out and plan things out. And Martian Manhunter is just against this. He's like, I think we should just attack him. Like, I think we should just attack him head on. You know, because the longer we wait, the more at risk we're going to be. You know? So the Dominators broadcast to Earth, and they basically tell Earth, give us all of your metahumans, and we'll leave you alone. Like, we won't kill any of you. And obviously, like, they're probably not telling the truth, right? But, like, the humans don't know that. And so the United Nations basically have to decide whether or not they give up the metahumans. And obviously they're split on this. Some of them want to, some of them don't want to betray the people that have been saving them and helping them. And so the United Nations, like the Secretary General of the United Nations, asks them the big question. Does Earth surrender her heroes to the invaders? Yay or nay? And we don't get an answer on that until the next page. Well, we kind of get an answer on it. I think we haven't gotten an official answer from the United Nations, but the public themselves are standing up against this, because at the Daily Planet, Jimmy Olsen has been tasked with writing the latest newspaper headline, which Perry White is very proud of, which is Earth to invaders drop dead, world gears up for war. So like Earth is deciding to unite. I think that does confirm that like the United Nations voted. I know I said they didn't, but like I know I said we didn't know, but I think this is supposed to be the confirmation of that the United Nations have voted no against giving up the metahumans and that they will fight against the invasion. So at the end of issue 1, we're left with, Earth declaring war. It's pretty great. I love how Perry is just like, but by Caesar, at least we stand united. So he's very proud of his home planet. And so that's the end of Invasion issue 1. Alright, it's tie-in time. Time to start doing these tie-ins, and the first tie-in that we're starting off with is the Spectre. So the Spectre tie-in basically involves what Spectre was supposed to be doing before, which was going and telling all of the other magic users not to take part in the invasion, and then they also have to deal with a local invasion instead. So basically that's what happens in this tie-in. But as we go a little bit deeper into it, tie-in starts off with these aliens, these weird looking aliens, trying to kidnap people. They've taken a couple of people. Like they've taken this guy, who's called Bug, who that's his nickname. He's like this old man, and so yeah, they're going around kidnapping people, and so and Spectre is traveling off to find all of the magic users so he can talk to them. Meanwhile, at a place called the House of the Secret Enemy, there are these two people that own it, the two owners, Marge and Zach. Are just yapping away and just talking. And meanwhile, at Madame Xanadu's place, Madame Xanadu is doing a tarot card session, and she senses the invasion through her tarot cards. And then Deadman shows up and is like, hey, we gotta go talk to the Spectre. Come on, let's go. I got a way to get there. We're gonna have to fly there. So she agrees to go with Deadman to go and talk to the Spectre. Meanwhile, in the Nevada desert, another character whose name I don't know because I don't think they ever say her name in this, and I don't read the Spectre, but there's this character who is in the Nevada desert, and she's being attacked by the aliens. She's being stalked by the aliens. They keep trying to grab her, and she's like, no, get away from me, and she manages to get away from them. Meanwhile, this other character called Zoran, who's another character, sees it happen, and he saw that old guy get kidnapped by the aliens, and he's also come and he's found the other aliens. So he's watching them with this old guy that's been captured, and then he sees them take the old guy into McGrew, that's his name. Take McGrew into this gateway, this special gateway, and he's like, oh, the gateway, I knew it existed. I gotta tell everyone. So Deadman and Madame Xanadu head to the airport, and Deadman possesses the pilot of the plane so that they can fly over to Nevada. Meanwhile, that girl from earlier, let's see if they actually say her name. I don't think they ever say her name in this. But she says the name, so she comes across another character who finds her. She thinks that he's an alien, but it turns out to be this guy called Hassan Al-Aman, who is apparently a friend of hers. So she comes across him, and they decide to team up. They decide to just team up with one another, and they talk about how this alien race is taking over, is starting to make a move, and that they must be here to like they've come out of hiding to be a part of like a much bigger invasion. They're obviously referring to the Dominators alliance, so it's assumed that these aliens are a part of that alliance, and that's why they've just been coming out of hiding all of a sudden, is because they're preparing for this massive invasion. They've been mutilating cows and stuff like that. This is literally like these aliens are the way that it's being explained of like aliens from the 50s. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, I keep forgetting to mention, it's late, sorry, but this Spectre issue is written by Doug Mensch, who wrote the previous tie-ins that we read for Millennium. He's writing Spectre at the moment, and the art is by Chris Wozniak. Sorry about that. It's late. I hate forgetting to credit artists and writers. I really hate it. So yeah, they talk about how like this alien race is coming out of hiding, and meanwhile, Zach and Marge, the couple from before, meet these two men in black. Like they're literally just men in black, and they show up and they're just like, "You two know about like the alien invasion, so we're gonna kill you." And they're just like, "No, please let us go." He's like, "Nah, we're gonna kill you because you know too much. 3, 2, and then like one of the aliens comes out of nowhere, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a live one! Shoot him!" And they go to shoot it, and they do, but upon shooting the alien like puts a cloak in front of it, and the blast of their guns kills them and the alien at the same time, because it like hits the alien, kills it, but rebounds and hits them as well, or at least knocks out the alien. I don't know if it's dead, but it knocks it out, and they die. They turn into skeletons. They're definitely dead, because skeletons aren't normally alive. You know, that's not normal. So yeah, that happens, and so Zach and Marge are just like, "Oh shit, that happened. Well, fuck. That was insane." Meanwhile, the Spectre meets with Dr. Fate, Phantom Stranger, Zatanna, a character named Tala, who I've never heard of before, and basically tells them that the Lords of Order don't want us to... Oh yeah, and what's his name? Etrigan is there too, I forgot about that. Basically tells them, like, we're not going to... Like, the Lords of Order don't want us getting involved. And so they begrudgingly agree not to get involved. Especially Deadman. Like, Etrigan and Deadman are definitely the two outliers of the group, because, like, they have no problem with going against the Lords of Order, because they normally do anyway, but they begrudgingly go along with the Spectre's wishes. So instead of dealing with the mass invasion, they decide to just deal with the local invasion. They find Zoran, and Zoran takes them to where he found the gateway. He tells them about how he saw McGrew get taken into the gateway. So they go to the gateway to go and get McGrew. Originally they were planning on just like sealing the gateway and not going in there, but Jim Corrigan actually forces the Spectre to go in there, because he's like, "McGrew's my friend, so like, please go save him." So the Spectre begrudgingly agrees to go into the gateway to save McGrew, while Etrigan the Demon, Zatanna, and Tala all stay outside of the gateway because I guess Doug Mensch doesn't want to write them, and is like, "Yeah, you three stay out here and don't do anything interesting during this issue." Meanwhile, Marge and Zach decide to dispose of the bones of the two guys throughout the desert, like to just scatter them, and then like keep the alien in their car. So that happens. They take the alien body and they put it in their car, and then they start driving across the desert, just start throwing bones out of the car, like, "Whoop, here we go, gotta scatter those bones." Like, what? This is insane. And so Spectre and the gang head into the gateway, Meanwhile, Etrigan actually does do some stuff. Like, Etrigan and Zatanna do some stuff. I forgot. They come across some of the aliens, and they fight them, and they kill some. Meanwhile, Spectre and the gang go inside the gateway, and they find what's inside it, which is, like, pieces of ships and stuff that are inside this other dimension. Deadman and Dr. Fate team up against some of the aliens, and they decide to try and capture one so that they can get answers from it. But Dr. Fate crosses paths with what he assumes is the mother of the aliens, and he comes to the conclusion, because he reads like the mother's thoughts, and he comes to the conclusion that the mother thinks that they're trying to like molest her children. So she gets really mad, and so Dr. Fate's like, shit, I don't want to kill this woman because she's just protecting her children, so I guess I'm just gonna have to protect myself and wait for somebody to help me. Meanwhile, Spectre, Madame Xanadu, and Phantom Stranger find McGrew, and an alien comes up to attack them, but Deadman comes out and just punches him out and kills him. Deadman's just like, hey guys, I came to save you. And then Madame Xanadu tells Dr. Fate to meet them because they found McGrew, and Dr. Fate's like, hey, I was waiting for an excuse to escape from battle with my honor, and so he escapes from that battle with the mother, and they exit through the gateway where they end up in the House of the Secret Enemy. But they realize that the patrons at the House of the Secret Enemy aren't there, and they're kind of like, where did they go? Where are they? And yeah, so it all ends up all good. Like, they get McGrew out, and they decide to seal up the gateway, and then the Spectre's just like, well, I guess we're just gonna chill from now on, because there's not really anything for us to do, and we're not allowed to take part in the larger invasion. And Deadman is just like, fuck you guys. You know? When stuff's going on, I want to be part of the action, so I'm gonna go take part in the invasion, and you can't stop me. You can't stop me from taking part in the crossover. See you later. And he just flies off, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be a part of this. And nobody stops him because they can't really stop him. And then, yeah, that's the end of the tie-in. It's pretty good. I mean, it's a bit confusing if you're not reading Spectre, because it's got a lot of characters who I don't know. But it's not that, but like, it's not confusing. It's just like, there are characters that I don't really care about just because I don't read the series, you know, and I don't really know who they are. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun tie-in. I thought it did a really good job of, like, incorporating the invasion, even if it wasn't like specifically the Dominators or anything, you know, it still felt connected. But yeah, on to the next tie-in. The next tie-in that we're going to be covering is the Flash tie-in, which is Flash issue 21, guest starring the Manhunter. Except this one, well, they say it guest stars Manhunter, but it's the next one that's going to be guest starring Manhunter, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's not guest starring the character Manhunter, it is guest starring a Manhunter in this. But anyway, let's get straight into it. It's written by William Meslows with art by Greg LaRocque, and continuing from the last issue of The Flash that we read, Wally has woken up on the streets after being knocked out by a Durlan, and the Durlan tried to, like, dissect him, but Wally managed to, like, the crowd that was surrounding him and stuff managed to get the alien away from him, and Wally was okay. So he wakes up, and he's like, I gotta look for my mum, you know, and then I've got to go to, like, a meeting, because apparently they're going to be holding a meeting about dealing with the invasion, because Australia has been attacked by all the aliens. So he needs to call someone for help. So he tries to call... so he asks for a quarter from a couple who take pity on him, because he tells him that he's like a superhero, and the guy's like, if you could come up with a crazy story like that, then he must be desperate. So he gives him the quarter. Wally goes to a phone booth and tries to call the Titans headquarters, but nobody picks up. And so he calls the JLI headquarters instead, and Oberon picks up, and Wally's just like, hey, it's Wally West. I was wondering if, like, I could, be transferred to you guys. I'm in a little bit of little bit of trouble right now, and Oberon's just like, you arrogant little snip, like, you think you can treat us like shit and then decide to just change your mind and come back? No, screw you. And he hangs up. And Wally's just like, oh no. And Booster Gold is like, who was that, Oberon? And Oberon was like, it was that West kid, the one that told you and Blue Beetle to screw yourselves, was like really rude to you. And Booster is just like, maybe there was a misunderstanding, I know his mom, like, I'm gonna go talk to him. So Booster Gold goes on the phone with Wally, and Wally explains what's happened. He doesn't have any money, his mum's disappeared. He's like, if you don't help me. And so Booster helps him. And Wally explains that the Piper and all of the people that were surrounding him had all vanished. And we don't really know what happened to them. I don't know what happened to them either. There's no context that I can give y'all. It's a mystery that I don't know about yet, because they did vanish. So Booster just says, like, you're gonna have to get to Washington, D.C. because we got this meeting that we gotta be a part of. So once you're done looking for your mum, come see us. So Wally heads home. Oh, wait, no, he goes to Washington, D.C. I thought he was at home now. He goes to Washington, D.C., and he reunites with his mum and Chunk. And his mum's really pissed at him because apparently he left her in the middle of the slums to go on, like, a little adventure. That's how she phrases it. But we know that she just, like, disappeared, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe she's not his mum. Maybe she's actually a Durlin in disguise. This issue deals with the Durlins and, them taking the form of people like the Manhunters did. So a couple of secretaries come in and they tell Wally that they received one of the Manhunters' ciphers, and it was signed FW. So Wally assumes that it's his dad, Frank West. Apparently, Frank is in Havana and wants Wally to come meet him because there are, like, Durlins that are trying to take over Havana, and they have, like, a matter transmitter there that they're using to bring their forces to Havana and then take over. So Chunk and Wally decide to go to Havana because Chunk has expertise in matter transmitters, so he would be able to help a lot. So they fly to Havana with a lady pilot, and as they're flying through Havana, they get shot by the local forces, like the local rebels that are in Havana. Their plane gets shot down, and they almost crash and die, but Chunk uses his powers to make the plane appear directly on the ground, like as it hits the ground, so that it doesn't hit it too hard. But the plane still ends up being on fire. So Chunk, like, rips open the door to get out, and Wally uses his speed that's kind of fluctuating at the moment to help the lady pilot, like the female pilot, get out of the plane before it explodes. Because she's injured, they leave her behind, and she tells Wally and Chunk to go ahead because she's like, I can take care of myself. I'm injured right now, but I'll be fine. You two go ahead and see if you can find anyone. So Chunk and Wally leave, and they find some tire tracks of a crane or like a bulldozer. They don't really know what it is. but then they start getting hit by laser beams, like being shot down at them, and Chunk uses his powers to zero in on the person. He can kind of sense the person that is shooting the laser beams at him, and he uses his powers to teleport them away to his, like, other world. And then Wally is like, alright, let's see who was shooting at us. Like, bring him back, Chunk. And Chunk uses his powers to bring him back, and it turns out it was a Durlan. Now, for some reason, Greg LaRocque doesn't know what Durlans look like, because I guess there was no communication between him and Todd McFarlane. So his Durlans look completely different to Todd McFarlane's. Todd McFarlane's Durlans are like slimy, gooey-like creatures that transform into anything. Greg LaRocque's are just like these orange aliens with antennas and purple suits that look more like, you know, classic DC aliens, you know, comic book aliens. That was one thing that's one problem with consistency in events, is that there's sometimes just no communication between different artists and different writers and stuff. So Wally and Chunk try to escape from this Durlan, because the Durlan is like transforming and stuff, and it transforms into like this flying beast and flies over them, and gets away. And as Chunk and Wally argue over it getting away, Wally hears a gunfire from a nearby camp, and like the camp that they'd set up for Sally, who was the name of the pilot, to be in while she recuperates. And Wally heads back to the camp and finds that she's missing. And upon getting there, he comes into conflict with Fidel Castro, who is a rebel who is in Havana. He's like the leader of like Havana. He's like the president of Havana or something, of like the forces in Havana, and like he has control over everything and stuff. And he suspects that Flash is working with the CIA, because he's like, why have you come here? And what he is doing is he is combating the Durlans, but he doesn't know that they're the Durlans. He thinks that they're the CIA, and he thinks that the CIA have replaced, like, have made copies of him and his forces. And Wally explains to him, he's like, it's not the CIA, like, these aliens called the Durlans have transformed into you and your men and women, and are posing as you to try and take over the world, because with your artillery and guns and things like that, they'll be able to easily take over the rest of the world. So we gotta stop them. And then all of a sudden, their guns get taken, like, they've got their guns all on Wally, and all of a sudden all of their guns just get taken out of their hands. And they think that Wally did it, and Wally's like, yeah, I did it, it was me, but it wasn't him, and he doesn't know who did it. And that's when Wally's dad shows up, Frank. And he's like, hey, it's cool that both of you are here, because now we can all team up together and take down the Durlans. And Senor is just like Fidel Castro is just like, who's this? And Wally's like, it's my dad. So Frank explains that he's the one that called the Marines and everything, and that they need to deal with the Durlans. So they all decide to head back to, like, they all decide to just chill at the camp until nighttime so they can plan out how they're going to deal with the Durlans. And that's when they discuss the fact that, like, the Durlans have a matter transmitter, like, that, because they thought it was a weapon at first, like, but it turns out it was a matter transmitter, and that they're using it to teleport weapons and men to Havana so that they can attack North America. All of a sudden, they then start getting shot at by a sniper. One of the sniper bullets almost hits Fidel Castro's Sergeant Gomez in the head. That's her name. But Wally uses his bullet to save her life. Wally uses his speed to save her life by catching the bullet. Wally then decides to go after the people that were shooting at them. And so does Fidel's men. So he sends out his men to go search the area where the gunfire was coming from, and they come back and they're like, we didn't find anyone, including Gomez. She gets sent out too. They come back and like, sorry, we didn't find anyone. And so they all decide to, go to bed and stuff, because it seems like everything's kind of cooled down and blown out, and they got to wait until the next morning before they continue. And while Wally is sleeping, Gomez comes into his tent and tries to kill him. She pulls out a gun and is about to kill him, but she gets knocked in the back of the head. And it turns out that she's a Durlan. She turns into a snake and she gets away. And then all of Fidel's men turn against each other, and they're like, no, that means you might be an alien. Oh, you don't look like how I remembered you looking like. You must be one of them. And Fidel's just like, man, we've got to calm down. Like, we can't be turning at each other right now. This is not the time to be turning on it against one another. And so Wally and Chunk decide that they need to head out and they need to find the matter transmitter. And they find it, but they don't know how they're going to be able to move it or anything because it's massive. And Wally's just like, you could absorb it, couldn't you? And Chunk's just like, I don't think I should, because I've already got one matter transmitter in me, and if I absorb another one, like, it'll destroy the whole of Cuba. Like, I'll absorb the whole of Cuba. And we don't want that to happen. And so they decide to go back to the camp and eat lunch instead. While at the camp, it's not Wally, but Frank comes up with the idea of, because Fidel has a copy of him who is about to broadcast to the entire world to turn against North America, Frank decides that they've got the real Fidel, so what they could do is Wally could use his super speed to replace the Durlan Fidel with the real Fidel, and have the real Fidel broadcast to all the Durlans and tell them to expose themselves amongst the crowd. But it would be a very hard thing to do. They would have to rely heavily on luck to get this right. But if they do, then that's awesome. And so Wally tries that. He grabs Fidel. He heads off to where the speech is being held, where the fake Fidel is. And using his super speed, he replaces the fake Fidel with the real Fidel and beats up the Durlan. And the real Fidel kind of stutters a little bit, but he manages to get out his words and tells all the Durlans to expose themselves in the crowd. And they do. And that's when all of the people are like, hey, these aren't like us, they're aliens, oh my god. And so like a fight breaks out in the crowd between the aliens and the humans. And they beat the aliens, and the aliens like run away. And so Fidel was just like, yeah, we did it, Wally. Yeah, and so it's all good. After that, it's all good. Cuba has a fighting chance now. That's what Fidel says at the end, and Wally decides that he has to head back to America because he's got to go to he's got to go to that meeting that he's been meaning to go to, where all of the superheroes are gathering to talk about the invasion. So he bids his dad farewell, but before he leaves, his dad decides to tell him that he's started a business selling these like buttons that'll tell you if you're an alien or not, because it's a scam essentially, because Wally's father is still a scrub. Like, he's just not a great guy. And every time Wally's just like, every time I feel like proud of you, like, I can't even be proud of you for 3 minutes before you prove me wrong again. Like, goodbye, Dad. And his dad's just like, damn, fucked up again. And so Wally leaves and his dad is just left there. And that's the end of the tie-in. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was a good tie-in. And it definitely, I like how it was Even if they got the Derlin's design wrong, at least it was a part of the event and was pretty well connected to the event. It's always a good thing. Right, so the Manhunter tie-in is the next tie-in that we're going to be talking about. And this one takes place at the exact same time as the Flash one. It's written by John Ostrander and Kim Yale, with art by Frank Springer and Pablo Marcos. So, Mark Shaw, who is the Manhunter, is called by Mary West to come and talk to her. And what she wants Mark to do is she wants Mark to go to Cuba and follow Wally West, because he's gone to Cuba thanks to his dad. She's just like, his stupid dad told him to come on this really stupid, deadly mission, and I want you to go and look after him, because he is too, like, I don't think he should be a superhero. I think he's too young, I think he's too immature, and I don't think he should be a superhero. Like, I think it's just too deadly for him. And Mark Shaw's like, I'm not a babysitter, you know? Your son's an adult. He can make any decisions he wants. And so Mary decides to try and leverage him by saying, like, you owe me. The Manhunters ruined my life, and you're a Manhunter, so you should make it up to them. You should make it up to me by doing this for me. And Mark Shaw is just really pissed off by this, and he's like, they ruined my life too. You know, so you have no reason to be using that kind of leverage against me. And so Mary decides to offer him money, and that's when Mark Shaw is like, fine, I'll go to Cuba and I'll look for West. But I'm not doing it because you want me to. And so he decides to go to the airport to get on the same plane that Wally is at, like, is about to get on. But he finds out that the cargo plane has already set off, so he's like, ah, shit, gotta get it. And so he, like, runs out onto the field as the plane is taking off. He puts on his, like, Manhunter costume, and he's got, like, this baton that he uses that gives him, like, that is just has all sorts of powers. And he jumps onto the plane and grabs onto the plane as it takes off, and he is just on top of it. He's just holding onto the plane as it's flying off, sewing onto it. So he flies to Cuba on the same plane that Wally's on, and tries to, like, so a bunch of missiles are getting shot at the plane, and Mark uses his baton to protect the plane by shooting at the missiles, but his baton runs out of power, and so the plane gets hit by one of the missiles, and so he falls into the jungle as the plane crashes, and he thinks he's gonna die. He's like, I love my, like, tell my children I love them, like, I gotta come to peace with everything because I'm about to die. And he hits the ground and wakes up because he didn't die, and is like, well, I'm not dead yet. Guess I'd better get to work. Should probably go check the crash site where the aeroplane is, see if I can find Wally West and anyone else that's there, any survivors. So he heads to the plane and discovers that it's empty. There's no one in there, which means they got out. And then he finds a crater that's like a whole chunk of Cuba that's missing, and he doesn't know what happened, but we know that it's because of the anti-transmitter device that the Derlins have been using. So he goes searching for any nearby camps, and he ends up coming across the camp that Wally and Chunk are in, and they're at the hands of Fidel. And so he sees that Fidel's about to shoot them, so he throws his baton out, and using the baton's power, the baton draws all the weapons in, and that's how they lost all their weapons. It was because of Mark Shaw. But as he's like, not too shabby, I did a good job there, he gets attacked by a Derlin who is disguising itself as a snake, and the Derlin takes him to where all of the other Derlins are, and Mark Shaw has obviously got to get out of there captive so that he can go and help Wally and Fidel Castro. So he decides to try and trick the Derlins by telling them that he's a Manhunter and that the Manhunters are members of the Alliance. And the Derlins are just like, we believe that you're a Manhunter, but we hate the Manhunters. The Manhunters suck, so yeah, like, we're just gonna kill you. And so Mark Shaw is like, well, that didn't work. I guess I gotta fight my way out of here. So he beats the shit out of all the Derlins, grabs his baton, and then beats the shit out of more Derlins, and then runs away. Like, he gets away from them. After getting away from them, he finds the fake Gomez entering Wally's tent to knock him out. But before he can go and stop her, he gets attacked by a Derlin in the form of a bird. However, he attacks it and the Derlin runs away, allowing him to then enter the tent and knock out Gomez. So it turns out he was the one that knocked out the fake Gomez. And then he gets pulled out of the tent by the Derlin that is in the form of a bird, which explains why he hits her over the head and then just disappears. It's because he got yanked out of the tent by this giant bird, and it like carries him through the air over the island, but he manages to punch it in the face, which sets him free, and using his baton, he saves himself from falling flat into the earth and dying. Manages to like use his baton to swing from a tree, which gets him down to the ground to safety. So the fake Gomez gets away and turns into a snake, where she meets up with the other Derlins and tells them that they've got to put their plan into action. Meanwhile, Mark Shaw kills a bunch of Derlins, but his baton runs out of energy, and then he runs out of energy because he's so fucking tired killing all these Derlins. And when he's run out of energy, that's when the fake Gomez finds him and holds him at gunpoint and is like, well, it's time for me to kill you because you're out of energy, so I can kill you right now. And Mark Shaw is just like, yeah, but I've still got enough energy to kill you too. So if you kill me and I kill you, like, if I kill you, like, you're not even going to be able to tell the others what happened. You know, and if you kill me, like, they're still going to stop you. So we're kind of at a stalemate here of like, you're gonna lose either way, you know. And that's it. That's easy enough to get her to stop. She's just like, you know what, that makes sense. This isn't worth the cost of what, like, I'd rather not die, so I'm just gonna let you go because I guess we failed. Like, this plan is we're gonna lose, so I'm just gonna let you go because it's not worth it. So she just lets him go, and then Mark passes out. He's just like, ugh. Passes out from exhaustion, and then after sleeping for a bit, he gets back up and finds that Fidel Castro is holding his meeting, and this is after the real one had taken over the fake one. So Wally's already left the island, and the way he discovers that is because he finds Frank West and asks him where Wally is, and Frank is like, sorry, you missed him, Wally's already gone back to Washington. And so Mark decides to head off with Frank to leave Cuba, and so it ends with him walking on the beach with Frank. Frank asks him about Mary, and Mark admits that Mary was the one who hired him and paid for him to come to the island, and that's it. That's the end of the tie-in. So the next tie-in that we're going to be talking about is the Wonder Woman tie-in. It is a crossover tie-in with the JLI, with Justice League International. It's written by George Perez and guest written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. George actually brought them in to help him write the JLI. So they write all of the JLI's dialogue, is what I assume. And the art is not by George Perez anymore. It's by Chris Marinan. So George Perez has gone straight to, like, he's gone full-time into writing. He's no longer doing the art for Wonder Woman. Probably to focus more on the writing, because doing both at the same time can be quite stressful. So that's probably why. Anyway, let's get straight into it. So the tie-in starts off with Etta Candy, who is an ally of Wonder Woman. You would have seen her in the Wonder Woman movie. She's been on a mission to a tracking station in the South Pacific, where she decoded some strange signals coming from space. And then all of a sudden, the tracking station that she was in was destroyed, killing her ally Captain Baines, like one of her friends, was there with her, and so he dies in the explosion. And so Etta sends out a distress call to King Cole, because they're going by like code names. She sends a distress call out to her commander for help, and that's when like a beam comes down and like hits her and like almost hits her, and she gets sent flying. And they're left on the other side. King Cole is just like, Etta, like, are you okay? Etta, come in. And she doesn't respond. Meanwhile, on Paradise Island, or Themyscira, as it's known now, the Themyscirans are, like the Amazons, are, like they hear a massive thunderclap in the sky, and they realize that something is wrong. And one of the Amazons, whose name is Penelope, has been is ill at the moment. She's like sweating and freaking out, and Wonder Woman goes to see her and is like, what's going on? Like, what's up with her? And they're like, we found her like this. She's sensing something. There's something out there. You need to go and find out what it is, Diana, because it's clearly something's wrong. And so Diana decides to head to Chaos, which is like another dimension that is between Themyscira and Earth. So you have to go through Chaos in order to get to Earth, and anyone who is deemed not worthy will die when they enter Chaos. So she travels through this antechamber to the world of man. And upon entering, she finds a bunch of Thanagarian warships attacking her. They're trying to break through the gateway to make their way into Themyscira. They're shooting the gateway that she came through, because she opened up a gateway to come out. So she realizes that they were baiting her, and she's like, oh shit, they were baiting me. They're trying to get to Themyscira. So the Thanagarians fire at Wonder Woman to try and kill her. One of them manages to get through the portal as it closes, but two of them can't get through because the portal closes too soon. So instead, they decide to go after Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman fights the Thanagarian warship. She actually deflects one of their blasts, which hits the warship, setting it on fire. And then that warship tries to shoot at Wonder Woman, and she dodges out of the way, and so their blast hits the other Thanagarian warship, killing them, and leaving Wonder Woman in shock, because she's like, oh shit, I didn't mean for that to happen. Like, I wasn't expecting them to shoot at their own guys recklessly and kill them. Like, I feel responsible. Like, this sucks. So she decides to head back into the Chaos realm, because the threat outside is over, to save the Thanagarians that have entered, because she knows that if she leaves them in there, they're gonna die. So she heads in, uses her lasso to try and save the ship, but the Thanagarians misunderstand what she's doing, and they blast her with a laser to get her off, and so she lets go of them, and they fall into the abyss of the Chaos realm and get destroyed. And Wonder Woman is just left like, why did you do that? I was trying to help you. Like, why couldn't you understand what I was trying to tell you? And so she's just left grief-stricken, and she's like, well, I have no choice but to go back to Earth now, because that's where the problem is. Like, I can't think about this anymore, I gotta go. So she heads out back to Earth. Meanwhile, Etta Candy is still being blasted by aliens, and she is trying to get a hold of her allies to get help, but she gets hit by another beam, and this one knocks her out cold. Meanwhile, a bunch of Wonder Woman's allies, including Steve Trevor and Black Canary, have come together. The reason why Black Canary is there is because she's there to tell Wonder Woman that the JLI need her help in, I think they say specifically where it was. I can't remember. Oh yeah, in the South Pacific. So the JLI are currently in the South Pacific, and they need Wonder Woman to go there to help them. So they tell Wonder Woman what's going on, that there's an invasion happening. Steve is actually tasked with going and finding Captain Atom, and we'll find out what Steve gets up to in the Captain Atom tie-in. And Diana goes off to find the JLI to help them. So she flies to the South Pacific, where she unites with the JLI. Blue Beetle is like hitting on her, and Fire and Ice don't really like her. They're like jealous of her. And Guy Gardner is embarrassed to see Wonder Woman because of their last interaction, which was in Legend 6, where he like hit on Wonder Woman, and so now he's just kind of like doesn't like being around her because he feels weird. And I was shocked they referenced that. So Martian Manhunter and Diana go off to talk to the commander to get a briefing on what's going on. He tells them that they need to go and find Etta Candy. The island is being held hostage by the Khunds, so that's the alien race that are here. And so Etta Candy's in trouble, so they need to go help her. They want the JLI. Like, the plan is that the JLI will cause a distraction so that Wonder Woman can save Etta, but Wonder Woman says that she would rather take a couple of members of the JLI with her so that she has some muscle, because she doesn't think that she's going to be able to take on all of the Khunds by herself. So they agree to allow her to take a couple of members of the JLI with her. Blue Beetle is game to go, but Martian Manhunter is like, no, you're staying here. We'd rather give her someone like Guy Gardner, because he's a Green Lantern and Green Lanterns are really powerful. But Guy Gardner doesn't want to go with Wonder Woman because she's a pacifist, and he doesn't like that. He doesn't like the fact that Wonder Woman isn't willing to kill, because Guy Gardner is willing to do anything if it means saving the day. But he is eventually forced to join Diana by Fire and Ice because they see it as a way to get rid of him, because they don't like Guy because he's a perv and shit. So they don't like the way he's acting right now. So they forced him to join Diana. He reluctantly joins her. He's like, okay, fine, I'll join her. Because they're like, we'll burn you. Like, we'll set you on fire if you don't join her. And Rocket Red, another member of the JLI, decides to join Wonder Woman because he's another strong member. His armor is really powerful, so he agrees to join her. And he just wants to get to know Wonder Woman more because he likes her. He calls her Wonderful Woman, which I think is pretty funny. So yeah, Guy, Diana, and Rocket Red head off to find Etta, and they come across a bunch of Khund warships, and Wonder Woman and Guy argue this entire time about killing, and Wonder Woman's like, we're not going to kill anyone. What is the first thing that Guy does? He attacks one of the Khund warships without Diana's approval and destroys it. Or at least almost destroys it. Like, it starts crashing, and Rocket Red is able to stop it from crashing by using a tractor beam that he can shoot from his armor. He got this armor from Apocalypse. It's like a new armor that he has, and he doesn't know how to use it yet, so he's still learning. And he figures out that it's got a tractor beam, so he's able to save the ship. And Wonder Woman restrains Guy Gardner after what he's done, and it really pisses her off. And Guy gets really pissed off at Wonder Woman. He's just like, you gotta learn that you gotta do whatever's necessary, because if you don't, you're gonna die, Wonder Woman, and I'm gonna die, and I don't want to die, so either you shape up and start doing things my way, or things are gonna go south. So it kind of gives her this ultimatum. Etta manages to wake up and sees Wonder Woman and Guy and knows that they're there to help her. Meanwhile, Rocket Red, who has landed in the jungle after using his tractor beam attack, because he's still getting used to the armor, so he's just like, and like falls back into the forest. And upon landing there, he gets attacked by a bunch of Khunds, but he's got like a force field that protects him, and he's like, oh, this armor has a force field, that's cool. Like, I'm learning more and more as we go. So while Wonder Woman and Guy are busy arguing, Etta is there shouting at Wonder Woman. Because they were arguing, she didn't hear Etta, and it gave enough time for the Khunds to see Etta as well, because she's screaming at the top of their lungs. So they come to kill Etta, And so Wonder Woman is like, okay, I gotta stop them. I gotta save Etta. So she flies down to grab Etta, but a beam comes down and hits her. And Wonder Woman is like, Etta, no! Because she thinks that she's dead. But it turns out that Guy Gardner has saved her. And he's like, see? Like, you need me. If I wasn't here, she'd be dead. Guess you can thank me, right, Wonder Woman? And Wonder Woman sees that a Khund warship is coming up from behind Guy Gardner, so she hits it with the force of her body because she sees that there's no other choice. She smashes into the ship, which sends the ship crashing into the ocean, killing the Khunds. And because of this, Wonder Woman is like, are you happy now? I gave in. I killed some people because it was the only choice I had. And Guy Gardner is thinking to himself, man, if only she knew that, like, the ring protects me, she didn't even have to do that. So he's kind of a dick for forcing her to kill when in a situation where she actually didn't have to. But, you know, Guy Gardner will do anything to prove a point. So Diana and Etta reunite, and Diana's kind of bummed because they killed all the Khunds, so they don't have any to, like, get information. But then Rocket Red reveals that he beat up a couple of them and he's got them tied up, and he's like, hey, we can get information from these two guys, you know, all's well. So they head back to the Sergeant, where the Sergeant is celebrating at the fact that they won the war, but he's like, there's more to come, it's not over, this is just the beginning. And this kind of peeves Martian Manhunter off, because he's like, why are we celebrating the deaths of these aliens and the deaths of our enemies? I don't think we should be celebrating any deaths. Wonder Woman's like, I agree with you, but there's no real way to avoid it. Like, we're going to be forced to kill these aliens. I don't like it as much as you do, but sadly that's just how it's going to be. And then Blue Beetle shows up and he's like, hey guys, we gotta go back to Earth, and, you know, there's something going on. They need our help. And then at the same time he's like, oh, did anyone ever tell you have beautiful eyes, Wonder Woman? He's like telling them that they need help, but then also like still hitting on Wonder Woman. And that's how it ends. It ends with that. And also when he does that, everyone's just like, Beetle! And so that's the end of the Wonder Woman tie-in. I really enjoyed it. It was good to have George Perez and J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen work together on an issue. Yeah, it was real fun. So the next tie-in that we're going to be talking about is Justice League International, which takes place at the same time as the Wonder Woman tie-in. We get to see what the other members of the Justice League that didn't take part in that tie-in are up to, like Martian Manhunter and Blue Beetle and all that, and Oberon and Booster Gold. So let's check it out. It's written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, with art by Kevin Maguire and Joe Rubinstein. And so yeah, it begins with at the Justice League base. Oberon and Maxwell Lord are talking about what's going on, about how the invasion has started. Wonder Woman has gone to help the JLI in Fiji, and Booster Gold is really upset that he wasn't allowed to go, so Oberon is given the task to look after Booster Gold. And he's like, what are you going to do, Maxwell? And Maxwell's just like, I'm going to chill on the couch and worry about the invasion because it's really freaking me out. And Oberon's like, wow, if Maxwell Lord is freaked out by this, then I don't know how I'm going to feel. That means it must be really bad. So Oberon goes to cheer up Booster Gold, who is just really, really... He's acting like a baby. He's like, I want to kill the aliens. And meanwhile, at the Australian Embassy of the Justice League International, like how at the end of Invasion 1, one of, some of the, Kundians found a teleporter. They learn about, how the teleporter is functioning and stuff like that, and one of the scions that is there reveals that he has some tiny alien race called the Imskians, and he plans on unleashing them on the JLI's home base, where Oberon and Booster Gold are. So Booster Gold and Oberon are playing checkers, and Booster Gold is really annoyed because he's just like, oh, we have 3D checkers in the future, so I'm not used to this primitive checkers. And Oberon's just like, hey, cheer up. You want me to go get you some milk and Oreos? And and Booster Gold's like, I'd rather just have vodka. And so Oberon's like, oh yeah, sure, I'm up for some vodka. So Booster goes off to get some vodka from the kitchen, and he hears like a zapping sound and a thud on the ground, and so he goes to check if Booster's alright. He's like, Booster? Hey buddy, is everything okay? And that's when he comes in on the Imskians. The little aliens have knocked Booster out. So they all start shooting at Oberon, and Oberon decides to he dodges the lasers and gets out of the kitchen. That's when he sees Maxwell Lord, and he's like, Max, I need your help. And Max is just like, whatever it is, you can tell me about it later. I'm busy. I gotta go off for a meeting. And Oberon's like, wait. And he's like, that's it, Oberon. Handle it yourself, whatever it is. So Oberon's left to deal with the Imskians by himself. So he's like, there's only one thing I can do. Run! And he runs away from them while they're all shooting at him. And a way he kind of combats them back is he gets a bowling ball and he throws the bowling ball at them and bowls a lot of them all over. But they quickly get back up and they start shooting him again, and one of them hits him in the leg. And so he ends up locking himself in Blue Beetle's room, because it's the only place he can go where they won't kill him. So Oberon is pretty much ready to die, but then he remembers that Blue Beetle has a flash cannon in his room hidden somewhere. He said that he keeps it in his closet. So Oberon checks the closet, he finds the flash cannon, and he uses it to knock out all of the Imskians. He's like, yay, I did it, that was awesome, I'm so cool. So he goes and wakes up Booster Gold, and he basically spins a yarn of a story saying that, he helped Booster Gold as soon as he had been knocked out. He said that he knocked out all of the Imskians right away and then helped Booster Gold. But Booster Gold pretty quickly deduces that Oberon was actually terrified. He's like, it was that bad, huh? And Oberon's like, yeah, I even pissed myself. And so Booster is like, what did you do with them? You didn't kill them, did you? And Oberon's like, nah, just, treated them in a more humane way. And he reveals that he'd put all the Imskians in Roach Motel boxes. And they're all just chilling in there. And he's like, right, guys? And they're all like, They, can't get out. Trying to make us... They can't speak. They're all stuffed in these boxes. And, meanwhile... So that's it with Oberon and Booster Gold. That's what they were doing at this time. Meanwhile, the JLI have united with Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman and Guy Gardner and Rocket Red go off to help find Etta Candy, and the other JLI members decide to stay behind and deal with the Kundian fleet that is currently flying over Fiji. There's a lot of ships that they gotta deal with. And so, on one of the ships, one of the Kundians realized that the airlock is open, and the other Kundian is like, shouldn't we be worried about that? And he's like, nah, it's probably not a problem. Maybe one of us just left it open by accident. And it turns out that's not the fact, because the reason the airlock was open was because Martian Manhunter came in disguised as a Kundian. The Kundian that the other guy was talking to was actually Martian Manhunter in disguise. So he chokes out the pilot, takes control of the ship, and flies to where the other JLI members are. A couple of ships are in pursuit of him, which they notice. So, Mr. Miracle and Blue Beetle use Mr. Miracle's boom tube to teleport into the ship that Martian Manhunter is flying. Mr. Miracle is holding a bomb, and they plan on using the bomb to destroy the entire fleet. How they're going to do that? We're going to find out. Using the ship that they have control of, Martian Manhunter draws the two pursuing ships into view so that Hawkman and Hawkwoman can shoot them out of the sky, which they do. They shoot the two pursuing ships, destroying them. Then Ice and Fire destroy another one of the ships that is trying to go after. So I think Hawkman and Hawkwoman destroy one of the ships, and then Ice destroys the other one with her ice powers. So all of the fleets decide to unite, and then they realize that the ship the Martian Manhunter is on is actually signaling surrendering. And so they're like, oh, they're surrendering, okay. Bring in them with the tractor beam. And so they start drawing in their ship with the tractor beam, but then they notice that there's an explosion in the distance, and as the ship comes towards them, the explosion gets bigger and bigger, and all the ships start getting caught in this massive explosion. And he's like, did you ever think that this might be a trap? Just as the explosion reaches them and destroys their ship and all of the other ships. So Martian Manhunter revealed that, like, they used the bomb to blow up one ship, which caused a chain reaction that destroyed all of the other ships, while they escaped, you know, because they're superheroes, so they just flew out of the explosion and survived. So Martian Manhunter reunites with Wonder Woman, and it ends the same way as the last issue. With Blue Beetle showing up and telling them that they need to go back to Earth. Like, it ends exactly the same way. And that's the JLI tie-in. Another good tie-in. Not as good as the Wonder Woman one, because it was kind of like what was happening with the other characters, and there's quite a few pages that I had to skip over because there were one-to-one pages of the Wonder Woman tie-in. Like, literally same dialogue and everything. But yeah, it was still good. I really enjoyed it, and I can see why people say the Justice League International tie-ins for this event are really good. Because they are. So the next tie-in that we're going to be talking about is the Swamp Thing tie-in. It's written by Rick Veitch, with art by Rick Veitch as well. The inker is Alfredo Alcala. So what happened recently in Swamp Thing, before I go into this, is because it's kind of important, is in the previous issue, Swamp Thing actually encountered the Dominators, and the Dominators killed him. As far as we know, Swamp Thing is dead. Like, we don't know for sure, but, like, people say he's dead, and including the Dominators. So the issue starts off with Swamp Thing's, love, Abby and Swamp Thing, like, having sex. And then she wakes up, and it turned out that it was just a dream that she was having, because she really misses Alec. And she's pregnant. She's currently pregnant with Alec's child. And her and Alec were hoping to raise this child to help protect the world and save the world, because they assumed that this child would probably have the same powers as Swamp Thing, or would be like half Swamp Thing. So, you know, together this child would be able to help save the world. But sadly, now Alec is dead, so Abby is forced to raise this child alone, or with her friend Chester, who is currently looking after her, because she's in her third trimester at the moment, so she's vomiting and all sorts of stuff. She's really insistent on finding Alec, so she heads back to, like, the tree that they live at. I think it's just called the Rotting Tree or something. And because Alec is dead, the tree is starting to fall apart. Like, there used to be furniture and stuff in there because they built themselves a home together, and now the tree is falling apart, and the baby's cradle is gone, just rotten now. So Abby goes to grab a couple of things before she leaves, but as she goes to grab some stuff, these, like, shackles come out of nowhere and grab her hands, and it turns out that there's this alien inside the tree who's wearing, like, a giant orange suit. He's, like, a really weird looking alien thing, or she, as I should say, as it's later revealed. But this alien has captured Abby, and Abby's like, let go of me, get off of me, and the alien pulls out a special helmet that it puts on Abby, and then takes her up into the ship that it has. Meanwhile, this character, whose name is Roy Raymond, he's like a He's like a celebrity news anchor. He recently got like plastic surgery for reasons that aren't important to Invasion, but he discovers that it's through him that these characters discover that the invasion is currently going on. So a TV reporter, like a nurse, comes in and says like, hey, have you seen on the news, like, there's an invasion going on? And he's like, ah, shit, that sounds terrible. Nah, he freaks out. He's like, oh my god, an invasion? What the heck? So Chester gets knocked out by this alien, and the alien takes Abby up into its ship, and where it's revealed that this alien is a member of the Alliance for the Dominators. The Dominators wanted this alien to bring Abby to them. Or basically, the Dominator says, like, you can either bring Abby to us and we'll kill her because she harbors the baby of Swamp Thing and we see it as a threat, or you can just kill her yourself. Like, it doesn't matter, as long as you kill her. And that's when the alien takes off his helmet and just starts ignoring the Dominator. The Dominator's just like, hello, I'm talking to you. And the alien reveals that it's actually a good-natured alien. She says that she didn't know that Abby was pregnant and that she herself is a mother as well. And she shows Abby that she has an egg that she's looking after. Meanwhile, Chester comes across Alex's, like, the lab that turned him into Swamp Thing. And it's upon this moment that the alien ship that Abby is in flies over the lab because it's, like, scanning the ground. And the alien is like, I came here for a reason. I came here looking for something. And I sense it somewhere in the bog down below. There's like a metal object and I need to grab it. So it puts down like a giant magnet, pulls out a spaceship from under the bog, puts on its suit, goes inside the spaceship, and finds the dead body of what is later revealed to be her husband. Now dead. So this alien came to Earth specifically. The alien was forced to join into an alliance with Dominators and then came to Earth hoping to find what happened to her husband because he had come to Earth previously and then just went missing. And so it's this really sad moment of this alien finding their dead husband and like just screaming, like making all sorts of alien noises of like despair and sadness. So the alien lets Abby go and apologizes to her and explains everything, and which I've already explained, and then leaves and says like, I'm gonna leave in peace because this is all I wanted. All I wanted was closure. And so the alien leaves, and then as Abby and Chester decide to head back to chill out after everything that's happened, Guy Gardner shows up. And Guy Gardner basically says that, like, the rest of the JLI is busy dealing with the invasion, and he's been sent to find Swamp Thing because they believe that Swamp Thing will be able to help them. So he is like, tell me where Swamp Thing is. And Chester's like, he's dead. And Abby's like, well, we don't know that. That's just a suspicion. And Chester's like, he was killed by, like, aliens. And Guy Gardner's like, aliens? Like, what do you mean? And Abby was like, no, he was talking about, like, he was talking about the fact that there was, like, Indians in the area. That's all he was talking about. There was no aliens in the area. And then Guy Gardner sees the ship of the alien that we just saw leave flying in the sky. And because it's an alien ship, he just shoots it down, no questions, and sends this ship flying into the sun. Which destroys it and kills it. So that poor alien just died, and Guy Gardner doesn't even know. Abby's just like, you monster! Like, how could you do that? And she just throws some mud at Guy Gardner, and he uses his ring to stop the mud from hitting him. And he's like, I'm just doing my job. See ya. And then he leaves. God, I hate Guy Gardner sometimes. So Abby and Chester Abby heads back to the rotting tree, where Chester tells her that he's like, we gotta go, like, we gotta get you to safety. And Abby's like, no, I'm waiting here. Why? And he's like, why? And she's like, because I believe Swamp Thing could be out there somewhere, and I want to be here waiting for him when he gets here. I believe in him. And so Chester begrudgingly leaves her behind because she refuses to leave, and she finds the ring, Swamp Thing's ring, like the rings that they gave each other when they became betrothed to one another, and she just sits there with the rings and is like, everything's going to be alright. And that's the end of the Swamp Thing tie-in. Really good tie-in, and I really enjoyed it. It was a pretty fast read. The whole thing with the alien and the plot twist of it being a very nice alien, and then the next plot twist of Guy Gardner just killing it without a remorse, like without even knowing like what the alien was and just judging it. Pretty horrendous. And I wouldn't say it was an assassination of Guy Gardner's character, because that's just the kind of person he was at this point in time, a no questions asked kind of guy. Alright, so the next tie-in that we're going to be talking about is the Captain Atom tie-in. Captain Atom issue 24, written by Cary Bates, Greg Wiseman, and with art by Pat Broderick. So basically, this issue chronicles the fact that, Captain Atom has been recruited by Maxwell Lord to be the commander of all of Earth superheroes. So he heads to the command center to talk to Colonel Wade Ailing and Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller is going to be leading all of the world's supervillains against the invasion threat as well. And while they're flying to the command center, it's revealed that the Durlans, which are those alien race that can shapeshift, are watching them and are eavesdropping. So they head to the base, and they have this plan that involves... So Mr. Miracle has a satellite that's orbiting the Earth. It's like a massive weapon. Originally it was used for evil, where it would create tsunamis and stuff. But and it shoots like a giant laser cannon out of it. But it was recently it can be reconfigured to be used for that, to be used for good. So what they plan on doing is they plan on sending somebody out into space to change the trajectory of the satellite cannon so that it fires at the alien fleets and takes out a good number of them. So that's the plan. And Captain Atom wants to be the one that goes out and does it, but Wade Ailing says that he can't because he needs to be on here on Earth to command Earth superheroes. So they decide that they need to send somebody else out instead, and Captain Atom decides that he wants to send out Steve Trevor because Steve Trevor is the only pilot that he trusts to do a job like this. So Steve Trevor is brought to the command center, and the whole plan is explained to him. He and Captain Atom reacquaint with each other, and they're like, man, it's been a while since, it's great to work with you again. It's been a while. And, so Steve agrees to do the plan. Steve agrees to do it. And so they're going to be doing it the next day. And so at night of the next day, it's revealed that, the Durlans are telling the Kundians what's going to happen, relaying the information to the Kundians' ship, because they have a mole within the command center, so they know everything that's going down. And at nighttime, Captain Atom finds Steve working on the plane when he's not supposed to be. And so he's like, hey, what are you doing in here? And Steve's just like, oh, I was just doing a couple of last-minute repairs. And Captain Atom's like, you're not supposed to be in here. You gotta go to bed, otherwise you're gonna get in trouble. I'll cover you this one time. And so Steve Trevor agrees, and he heads back to bed. They wake up the next morning, and a man comes in, and he's like Ailing, we have trouble. Steve Trevor, somebody got him last night, and now he's in a weird condition. And they go and find Steve Trevor's body encased in this weird energy that has placed him in a coma. So they realize that they can't send Steve Trevor out anymore because an alien got to him. So Captain Atom decides that he has to be the one to do it because he's the only one left. Ailing is against this, but Amanda Waller and Maxwell Dillon vote for Captain Atom to be the one to go and do it. So Captain Atom heads off into space to reconfigure the cannon, and that's when it reveals that the Derlins had actually... Steve Trevor was never at the command center. He was a Derlin the entire time. How is he a Derlin? But why would he be in a weird comatose state? Well, it's revealed when the Doctor realizes that the Colonel Trevor that is in a comatose state isn't actually him. It's this fake clone made out of goo, and that was artificially made by the Derlins, and that the other Steve Trevor, the one that is a Derlin in disguise, is still there. So there was two Steve Trevor copies, the Derlin one and then an artificial one made to look like he was in a coma. Meanwhile, Captain Atom goes into space and he discovers that his oxygen system has been tampered with, and that's what the fake Steve Trevor was doing that night when he was repairing the plane. The Derlins' plan the entire time was to capture Captain Atom, so they baited him to come into space so that they could capture his ship. Ailing holds the fake Steve Trevor at gunpoint, but the fake Steve Trevor manages to transform into a one of those display skeletons and then tries to kill Ailing. Meanwhile, Captain Atom uses what little oxygen is in the gas that's knocking him out in his helmet to cause his entire ship to explode because he's got radiation powers. So he causes his entire ship to explode, which ruins the Derlins' plans because their plan was to kidnap Captain Atom, and now they can't anymore. He then heads back to Earth and he saves General Ailing from the Derlin, but the Derlin manages to escape. It tries to escape in, it looks like it's trying to escape in a helicopter, but Captain Atom figures out that the helicopter is actually 3 Derlins, or 4 Derlins that have transformed together into one helicopter. And the way he figures this out is that the regular helicopters have 2 fuel tanks, but this one had 3. And so he knew it was a fake copter, so he pulled one of the tanks off and threw it at the helicopter, which split them all apart and caused the Derlins to fall to the ground and splat. So they're all dead. So Colonel Ailing, General Ailing, commends Captain Atom on what he did. It's a very rare moment of Ailing actually commending him. They shake hands, and Amanda Waller's wow, they're actually getting along. That's pretty crazy. And they decide that they need to move forward with the meeting with all of the world's superheroes. However, the next morning, Captain Atom is gone, and Amanda Waller reveals that he's gone to Metropolis because he believes that he should have the job of recruiting Superman. And so Ailing is who's going to be commanding all these superheroes then? Who's going to talk to all the heroes? And Maxwell Dillon's Maxwell Lord is I think I've got somebody in mind. And that's where the tie-in ends. We're kind of left off. In another tie-in, we're going to see Captain Atom go and find Superman, and then in another tie-in, we're going to see where this leads with the crowd of superheroes. Who's going to talk to them? Who's going to be the ones that lead them into the battle? Maybe it'll be Wonder Woman. Who knows? And also, we're probably gonna it also says in a future tie-in we're gonna find out what happened to the real Steve Trevor. I think it's in the next Wonder Woman tie-in. Wonder Woman will be looking for Steve Trevor, so looking forward to seeing the update on that. But I enjoyed this tie-in. It was pretty good. It was a lot of plot twists and turns. It was cool to see the Derlins take part in another storyline, and this time they actually look like the Derlins, all slimy, and they wear cloaks. So Pat Broderick did a good job going back and looking at Todd McFarlane's designs and making sure that he tried to copy them, But it was good. Good tie-in. So the next tie-in that we're going to be talking about is Firestorm Issue 80. It's written by Robert Greenberger with art by Tom Grinberg. And like the other Firestorm tie-ins, this version still has just like Firestorm himself is in control and not Ronnie or Mikhail. So he's got no personality and he's just like I'm a baby and I don't really know how to do things. And I don't like that. I don't like that characterization of Firestorm. But the story of this is still better than those ones, so I was able to read it and enjoy it enough. I just don't enjoy that Firestorm. But regardless, let's get straight into the story. So the South Pacific is currently being attacked by the Khunds and invaded. And there are a group of army men who are combating the Khunds, and they're waiting for support from they're hoping that some superheroes are going to come and help them fight the Khunds, because they're at risk of dying right now. Meanwhile, Mikhail is going back to his job because he and Ronnie are now free from Firestorm's body, so he's able to finally get on with his life. He's still Firestorm, but he's no longer trapped inside Firestorm, so he heads back to his job as a professor and is finally able to start teaching his students, which he's really happy about. Meanwhile, Ronnie is just chilling, waiting for something to do. He doesn't really know what to do. He's currently in Ogaden trying to help the people there who are starving and stuff, but Firestorm can't even really do anything about that. And then he sees that the alien invasion is currently going on and sees a report on the TV that tells him all about it. And then he gets a phone from someone who refuses to tell him who they are, telling him that he needs to go to the South Pacific in order to help them against the Khunds. So and he asks Ronnie to call Firehawk, who is a Firestorm support character. She's basically a female Firestorm, to ask her for help. So Ronnie agrees, and he calls up Lorraine, who is Firehawk, asks her to come with him. She's a bit reluctant, but she agrees, even though secretly she isn't in the mood to do this kind of thing. But she turns into Firehawk and she heads off to help Ronnie. Meanwhile, Karen Starr, who is aka Power Girl, who is an alternate universe version of Supergirl, whose Earth was destroyed by Crisis and now she's stuck on Earth. She's a part of this software team, and they're currently trying to figure out how to make some new software through the invasion. They're gonna use it to help make software or something, some shit. She hears about the invasion and she decides that she needs to go and help as well. So she becomes Power Girl and heads off. And that's when Ronnie calls to Mikhail and they summon Firestorm. They transform into Firestorm and they head off to the South Pacific. And Power Girl she sees the trails of both Firestorm and Firehawk and follows them, and then unites with them, and the three heroes team up to help save these guys and fight the Khund. So they head off to the South Pacific, and they come across a ship, one of the Khund's ship, and so Power Girl breaks the door off, and they all head inside, and that's where they come across Starman. Now, Starman doesn't know how he got there, but he was recently ambushed by a group of aliens, and then just somehow ended up on this ship. But he decides to help the heroes fight the Khund. So they take control of the ship, and they decide to head to the South Pacific. They use the ship's TVs to check out a full report on the invasion so that Starman gets caught up on everything that's going on. And then meanwhile, the Khund have somebody held captured. We don't know who they are yet. We don't know their name, but they have somebody held captured who they are using to gain information to help them with this attack. They decide to send 5 tanks to take down the remaining army men on Earth, but they have a grenade launcher that is protecting them long enough for the heroes to hopefully arrive and save them. However, the Kund decide to send like a signal to the ship that Power Girl is like that the heroes are commandeering, asking them to. They basically say like, send us a response of position, or we'll open fire and we'll kill you. But because they're speaking in their Kund native language, Power Girl and the other heroes can't understand what they're saying, and the translator on the ship, like, the ship doesn't have a translator, so the Kunds just take it as, like, they're not responding, and they shoot at them, destroying the ship that Power Girl and Firestorm and everyone's on, right before the eyes of these army men, and the army men are like, why are the Kunds shooting at their own ship? And the ship gets blown to smithereens, and that's where the Firestorm tie-in ends. It was pretty straightforward, a pretty fast tie-in. Not a lot really happened. Obviously, there was like some conversations between the characters, but it was all just pointless dialogue and stuff. And Firestorm just being like I don't know how to talk to other humans and stuff like that. He tries to make a joke at one point. It's just not good. But yeah, overall the story was fine. Like, I enjoyed it. I think it was tied to the invasion, so I can't hate it. You know, the only time I hate event tie-ins is when they just don't tie into the event at all and the story is shit. I'd say this is probably lowest on my list of tie-ins so far, because I really enjoyed all the other ones, but that's not to say that it's bad, it's just not as good as all the other ones. So the next tie-in that we're going to be talking about is Starman Issue 5. Starman Issue 5 basically fills in the gaps from Firestorm. We get to find out how Starman ended up in the situation that he's in, and it also gives us a conclusion to the cliffhanger that the Firestorm tie-in left us off at. So, it's written by Roger Stern with art by Tom Lyle and Bob Smith. And the story starts with Starman has been kidnapped by a group who call themselves the Power Elite. They're just a group of assholes who basically want superpowers so they can become superheroes, but they're really selfish. And they believe that they can, you know, steal Starman's powers and give themselves powers, and so that's why they've kidnapped him, and they're experimenting on him. They got a headband on him that stops him from being able to respond super well, and it's while they are talking about Starman that they discover that the invasion is going on, and that they should do something about it. And one of them's like, hey, what if Starman is working for the invaders? And they're like, well, why would you think that? And they're like, well, it's probably because, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they clearly figured out who we are, because, you know, we built that satellite in space and it's been set off course. So, maybe they planted somebody in our leagues. And I reckon it's Starman. So one of them decides to lock down the entire building because he's like, we gotta prepare for a battle. So yeah, they go in lockdown, preparing for the battle. I forgot to mention Starman. His name is his secret identity is Will Payton, which is something I learned today while reading this. So yeah, some of the members of Will's family, including this woman named Peggy or Peg, find out about the invasion, and she's worried about Starman's she's worried about Will's current situation. She's like, oh, is he okay? Like, because she knows he's a superhuman, but he's also kind of gone missing at the moment, or she doesn't know that he's gone missing. So while some of the other guys go away to do science stuff related to the invasion, one of the members decides to stay behind. And, like, one of the members of, like, the Power Squad or whatever they called themselves, decides to stay behind, and it turns out that he is actually a Durlin in disguise. The one that was accusing Starman of being a part of working for the Dominators is actually the one working for the Dominators. So he's a Durlan, and he believes that, like, because he discovers that Starman has more power than they realized, and that he used to be a metahuman, but now he's turned into something else. He's gone through a metamorphosis, and he's not a metahuman anymore. He's more of like a god now. So he calls the Dominators to tell them what happened, and they ask him to bring Starman to them so that they can experiment on him. So this Durlan calls a Kund ship, and when the Kund ship arrives, the Kund kills the guards that are next to the Durlan, because the Durlan is currently disguised as just a regular professor. The Durlan's just like, why'd you kill them? You could have killed me. Like, I could have been disguised as a guard. And the Kund's just like, whatever. I don't care. Put that stupid metahuman in the ship. So they put Starman in their ship, but the Durlan gets shot and captured by the guards while the Kund gets away. And that's when Starman wakes up in the Kund's ship, and upon waking up, he fights the Kund because he's like, "Who are you? Why have you? Like, why am I here? Like, how did I get here?" And the Kund is just like, "I'll kill you for talking to me like that because you're scum." And they fight each other, and the Kund gets knocked out. And that's when Firehawk, Firestorm, and Power Girl show up and find Starman. They become acquainted with Starman, and everything that happened in the Firestorm tie-in happens, and then the ship gets blown up by a Kund laser. The army men below are like, why would they shoot at their own ship? And one of them gets shot because he's like an idiot and gets up out of the trench and starts shooting Kunds, so he dies. And that's when they're like, oh, hey, the artillery's here to save us. And it's revealed that Starman, Power Girl, Firehawk, and Firestorm surprisingly survived the ship explosion. So they show up and they start blasting the shit out of Kunds. Firestorm and Firehawk are especially brutal in, like, killing these Kunds, and Starman notifies that. He's like, wow, Firestorm and Firehawk are scarily brutal, while Power Girl is doing everything she can to not kill Kunds. You know, but Firestorm and Firehawk, they don't care. Starman gets hit by a laser, but it doesn't do anything. He's just like, I'm fine. And then he's like, I'm gonna destroy their weapon systems for shooting me with that laser that didn't actually hurt me. And so he, like, flies into the Kund base, and that's where he discovers the Kund who has a capture, like somebody held captive, that mysterious person from earlier. And it turns out that person is Adam Strange, because if you remember, in Invasion Issue 1, Adam Strange ended up back on Earth, but he was kidnapped by Kunds. He ended up in the South Pacific, and he was kidnapped by the Kunds. So he's been held here the entire time, and they've been torturing him for information. So Starman saves Adam Strange from the Kund. Adam Strange gets in contact with the Justice League so that he can talk to them about his situation, what's been going on, and that's when Adam Strange reveals to Starman that Captain Atom has called them for a council meeting. And Power Girl is like, hey, Starman, like, do you feel like one of us? Because if you do, we'd really like you to be at that meeting, because he's been kind of, like, in and out on whether or not he feels like he's part of the superhero community, because he's very new to this. And Starman's like, you know what? I feel like I can be a part of this, so I would love to go to the council meeting. And that's where the tie-in ends. It ends with him agreeing to go to the council meeting with all the heroes, and I guess we'll find out what happens in that council meeting in the next tie-in issue. And also, in the next episode, because that's going to be it for this episode of the Marvel and DC Retrospective Podcast. Sadly, we're going to have to finish it at this tie-in, because I go 10 issues at a time with this, because I think there's 29 issues total with Invasion, and so I'm going like 10, 10, and 9. So yeah, that's going to be it for this episode, so you're just going to have to wait until the next episode of the podcast to find out what happens in Invasion, where we finish the rest of the tie-ins for First Strike, and then Invasion Issue 2 will be in that episode as well. So, look forward to that, and if you enjoy the podcast, feel free to give me a follow. Obviously, every episode gets released on every Sunday. You can follow me over on Twitter at KChambo, CAICHAMBO. I make updates about the podcast, and I tweet comic book stuff, just different thoughts that I have while reading the comic books, so you might see a little bit more of, like, how I feel about these issues as I'm reading them, stuff that I don't usually talk about on the podcast. You'll see me tweet about over on there. But yeah, I'm really enjoying doing this podcast. I really enjoy reading. I'm really enjoying reading this event. So far, all the tie-ins have been good enough that, like, there hasn't been a bad one yet. This is probably the longest streak I've gone. But yeah, hope to see you next time, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a good one. Bye.